From KCRG TV9, this is First Alert Weather Now.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Monday evening edition of First Alert Weather Now. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson. We've got a lot to go through over the coming days as we will see little in the way of precipitation, but some pretty big changes in our temperatures. Now, there is a bit of an exception to that precipitation remark. We do have some on the way later tonight. I'll show you when and where and how much in just a little bit. We've also got your forecast for fun and a look back at a time period in the 90s when things turned quite wintry for the second half of January, set some records both on the warm and cold end in the process. First, what you need to know as you step outside tonight, you will have that chilly air that's in place and the possibility of seeing some snowflakes too. Light accumulation is possible with a weak weather disturbance that will be moving through. We'll show you that in just a little bit here. Otherwise, we're looking at a warm up as we head through the rest of the work week. By Thursday into Friday, we'll be back above normal for the first time in a little while and seeing some temperatures that we haven't seen since December. Now, after that, another batch of cold air comes down from Canada and the Arctic, and this one probably the coldest of the season so far, with some of those temperatures turning quite cold indeed. Our Solon City Cam, though, tonight shows a very quiet picture. Temperatures are quite chilly. Winds, though, have turned lighter after a fairly blustery day. Waterloo, the only one clocking in with those wind speeds in a double-digit fashion. Everyone else in the upper single digits to mid-teens with temperatures at this hour. But even with that lighter wind, it feels like 3 below 0 in Cedar Rapids, 1 in Fayette, 14 though in Prairie du Chien, where winds have turned quite a bit lighter. If you are headed out this evening, you do want to dress warmly as those wind chills stay quite cold. Now, it has been a very sunny day, but clouds are moving into our northwest zone at this hour and more spreading to the southeast over the next several hours. It's off to the northwest of that we will actually see a little bit in the way of snowfall moving in from the Dakotas. You can see some streaks of that in South Dakota right now, limited in terms of its overall impacts, but it's still out there and something to keep an eye on. Temperatures will slip into the single digits later tonight after skies begin to clear a little bit and a snowfall moves through. More details on those amounts as promised in just a little bit, but we do have more things coming up this week, a lot of indoor activities, and First Alert meteorologist Joe Winters has it in the forecast for fun.
Winter's chill is with us for the mid part of January, but people still like to get outside and enjoy. Let's take a look at your forecast for fun. 14 on Tuesday. If you're out early in the morning, wind chills will be down below 0, much like we saw today. Bundle up. But a nice recovery coming our way on Thursday with that high near 40 degrees. Thursday and Friday looks like some nice days to be outside if you do want to get out with some relatively mild temperatures for the month of January. It's Hilton Magic coming up on Wednesday. Kansas at Iowa State. Tip-off at 6 o'clock. About 29 degrees with quiet conditions if you're headed to the game. ESPN2, the broadcast otherwise, looks like no travel difficulties at all. On Thursday, it's the Iowa Haunted Corridor. Chilling adventure with local author Katie Hopkins, 6 to 7 o'clock. I think we're going to see quiet weather on Thursday as well as that production takes place, again, at the Cedar Rapids Public Library. Iowa women's basketball, Nebraska comes to town. That happens on Thursday. Tip-off at 6. It's black and gold stripe out with 40 degrees. Again, mild, and the Imon Ice Arena will be alive on Friday, 44 degrees. Green Bay is on town. Puck drops at 7:05. It's college cornhole night. Should be an exciting night to be over at the Imon Ice Arena. That is a complete look at our forecast for fun.
Now, your First Alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
Certainly is the activity time for indoor activities this time of year, and your First Alert highlights part of the reason why. We have both snow and cold highlighted here. Temperatures overnight slipping into the single digits on the thermometer, but wind chills while you wake up and head out to work and school, likely below 0 yet again. It's those snow showers overnight that could cause a few slick spots for when you wake up on Tuesday, but they will be pretty short-lived. Once the sun comes up, there will be pretty clear sky again, and so any tricky road conditions, though they will be quite hard to find in the first place, should go away. Our Springville City Cam tonight, our flags in the downtown area right here in front of the Legion not moving, and those flags there also not moving too. We're seeing very light winds at this point, but any little push of air when it's this chilly doesn't take much. Feels like 3 below in Springville, 8 in Iowa City above that 0 mark. We're going to keep it rather chilly in the next several hours, too. Pinpoint Doppler radar shows a dry picture around eastern Iowa right now. But again, if we pull back to the northwest, we show you where those streaks of snowfall are taking place. They are going to be, again, falling into drier air, as we have often seen over the last several days, but not quite as dry as what we had over the weekend. That kind of limited the overall snow impact that we had there on Saturday night into Sunday morning. This time, there may be the opportunity for some of those snowflakes to actually make it to the ground and cause a few slick roads. This area of low pressure is the culprit, a couple of fronts right behind it, and you notice how shallow that cold air area behind it is. So once it moves by, we've got about another day of these particularly chilly temperatures before things start to change. And your first alert forecast overnight, certainly on the chilly side. 3 below zero on the thermometer in Charles City, 4 in Iowa City. That chance of snow, especially south of Highway 20. We'll show you what we mean here with Pinpoint Futurecast. Clouds starting to roll in, as we showed you. By 10 o'clock, more clouds in more places. That will limit our temperatures from falling too much further at that point. Steady them for at least a handful of hours as the system rolls by. Now by midnight, snow showers starting to enter our western counties up toward Marshalltown and north toward the Charles City area. By 1 o'clock, we'll be seeing more of those, especially in the central portion of the viewing area, into the south too. No slightly darker colors here along and south of Interstate 80. That's why we think it's that corridor that could see the slightly higher amounts here in terms of our already fairly narrow range. Now, as we go through the nighttime hours, 4 o'clock tapering off, 5 mostly by the Mississippi River, and many of our northern zone communities already seeing clear skies by then. When the sun comes up tomorrow morning, we will be clear, chilly, but still dealing with those northwesterly winds that stay blustery through the day, reinforcing the cold air we already have in place. And so we're still expecting tomorrow to be even potentially a few degrees colder than today. Now tomorrow night, as winds turn light and skies stay clear, we are expecting another cold start to the day on Wednesday, but then winds start to shift. And that will be the change that we are expecting across eastern Iowa in terms of pushing temperatures a little bit higher. Now, a trace to an inch of snow is likely for the areas here in white. Again, along and south of Highway 20 is the main area that we're watching. And it's this area right around the Interstate 80 corridor where we could get toward the higher end of that range. But again, it's a fairly small amount. But even those small amounts, when temperatures are cold, can cause those slick spots. So we want you to be a little bit careful out there. Temperatures on the thermometer in the mid-teens tomorrow. Again, remember those single-digit wind chills, though. It's going to be a bit of a struggle thanks to those blustery winds that we are expecting. And we're going to keep those winds at least noticeable each day as we head into the start of the weekend. And Saturday in particular, could be some gustier winds coming in from the north. And that's going to result in those temperatures then turning even colder. Remember, tomorrow morning below zero wind chills, much like we saw this morning, double digits below zero. Afternoon temperatures with the wind factored in, probably only around zero or just slightly above in most locations. So that is certainly on the cooler side of things. We were much steadier in temperatures last week in terms of how close to normal we were. Several degrees on either side, but no big changes. Just that little warm up as we headed toward the very tail end of the week. This week, that line is a little more all over the place. We are going to have big swings in temperatures as we head toward the weekend, but it's all in general headed toward a below normal temperature set of conditions as we head even toward the latter portion of the month. This is January 20th through the 26th. And yes, cold temperatures still favored around eastern Iowa. Now, even though we are facing colder temperatures in the very near future, it's not quite anything like we saw on the tail end of January in 1996. And it all started on January 17th. That's when a cold front moved through, dropped some snow on the area, and resulted in scenes like this. This is from Newscopter 9 on January in that same time period. Snow and bitter cold were seen across the area. And yes, we saw those temperatures fall quite significantly. In fact, they started from a very warm place. We were actually significantly above zero and setting records on the warm side as that front approached. But then once it moved through, temperatures fell in a real big hurry, and it caused some snow to take place as well. And that caused those travel conditions to deteriorate pretty quickly too as that front moved by. At the time, KCRG TV9's Lori Johnson reports on what that did for folks around eastern Iowa.
What are you guys doing out here?
Playing in the snow, getting dirty.
Isn't it cold?
No.
You don't think it's cold out here?
It looks like a game of chase, and a few layers of extra clothes is all these kids need to stay warm in these sub-zero conditions. Not everyone got a chance to play. Many had to work. Snowplows pushed through city streets to clear the snow.
Shoveling snow on your own walk or driveway is bad enough in sub-zero temperatures, but imagine doing it for several of your neighbors.
Renee Taylor doesn't have to imagine. With the help of her snowblower, she clears her neighbor's sidewalks after every storm.
Because there's a lot of people here on our street that can't do it.
Kelly Stanke makes sure the mail gets through regardless of the weather. Stanke tries to move faster on cold days like today.
You try to, but if no one's shoveled, it kind of slows you down. And I can't blame them for not shoveling today. I wouldn't have been out last night shoveling either. Actually, my mailman's probably mad at me.
Now, the weather whiplash was really the big part of what took place during that time frame. Guttenberg on the day of January 17th reached a high of 54, and then we saw New Hampton have a high of 52. We saw those numbers, though, change from 54 to 2 below zero. New Hampton 52 to 1 below zero. That was in the course of less than a day. And so that was a pretty sharp drop. Heavy snow came along with it. You saw some of those scenes from around the Cedar Rapids area. There were also scenes in far northeast Iowa where 7 inches of snow took place in that New Hampton location, as well as 6 in Postville. Blowing snow and bitter cold temperatures were also a pretty big factor here looking through that. The biggest temperature drop we saw with this system, it was in Oelwein. This is January 18th, where things went from 50 in the morning. So not quite as warm as some of those other locations, but the fall was bigger. 9 below zero is where we wound up by midnight that night, and that provided those very bitter temperatures, and those wind chills, of course, much colder than that. Now, there is one thing to keep in mind with all of this, is that we saw those temperatures that eventually went even colder than that as we went to January. So the memories of above normal temperatures were certainly long gone by the time we got there. We talked about 60 degrees in some of those locations before that front moved through, records set in Waterloo and Burlington. So yeah, we know it can happen quickly. Our temperature drop as we go into the weekend, not quite as sharp. We are, in fact, expecting a pretty big swing, though, from the 40s back to the negative numbers as we look ahead to that time, and your next 9 captures that. We are expecting a pretty big drop by the time we get toward the end of it, but we need to rise before that. Look at this, 14, 24, 40 degrees as soon as Thursday. So those winds, as they shift to the southwest and west, that will start to usher in that much warmer air mass, which is the great sign there. Lots of sunshine to go with it. We'll see some clouds start to get into our picture by Wednesday and Thursday too, but not likely to see overcast skies, at least in the immediate future. It's toward Friday and Saturday that we'll have to watch for a bit more cloudiness as a cold front approaches. Now, ahead of it, mid-40s looking likely again. Not the 60s that we talked about there in 1996 in our weather rewind, but instead a drop from the 40s to the 20s to the teens, and then the single digits. That's all as a chillier air mass moves into the region. Warm air in place on Friday morning, but as that front sweeps through by Friday night into Saturday, this air coming from far northern Canada or even across the pole in the Arctic, and that will send our temperatures plummeting. Now remember, if we had a big heavy snowpack on the ground, take another 10 to 15 degrees off of these readings that we have in our 9-day forecast, so it could be much colder simply because of that fact. But we will be keeping things certainly on the chilly side. Wind chills going from negligible on Friday and morning with 20s, which is nothing that we can't handle this time of year, to perhaps as cold as 10 to 20 below zero by the time we get toward Monday. So yeah, that is a big difference, and that is the big swing there. But notice that things bounce back again toward the tail end of it. It's kind of interesting to see a pattern that involves such big temperature differences, but not involving much in the way of precipitation. After tonight, there is no additional outlook for rain or snow in our 9-day forecast. For the rest of it, yeah, it looks like a very quiet weather pattern continues, and dry weather too. January is our driest month, so it's not shocking to see a lack of precipitation, but we also know what it can bring, and it's just bringing none for now. And that's it for now here on First Alert Weather Now. We will be back again tomorrow night, same time and place. Have a great night.